greatest commandment for any Christian who might still be kind of pushing back at this point? They're watching and they're saying, well, the automatic writing or centered prayer, or contemplative prayer, this idea, it sounds like you're just making this case that, unless I care about theology, I'm a second-rate Christian, you're making me feel like because I'm not intellectual, then I'm less. And I think that's part of the draw. I think part of the draw is you're trying to find worth in something, trying to find that self-significance, and you don't feel particularly gifted in one area. And so you're trying to, gravitate as an alternative to another. And I would just encourage any Christian who's listening to this by saying the greatest commandment is to love God, but if we're going to be honest and flesh the whole thing out, it's not just to love God however you want. It's not just to love God your way. Jesus is very clear. It's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, but also, he says, with all your mind, with all your mind. And so genuine Christian love for God, it is a thoughtful, a thinking, a reading, a studying love. It is. Is it heartfelt? Is it filled with zeal and passion? You bet you. It's a heart love, but it's also a mind love. And I think Christians look at that, and I used to do this. Christians will look at that, the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength. And what they'll do is they'll kind of divide it up into 3 or 4 sections, and they'll say, I'm called, and the way that God's gifted me, the way that he created me, I'm one of those individuals who's loving God with all my heart. And there are some who are loving God with all their mind. And they basically, I guess what I'm saying is they fracture the commandment. They divorce it. They divide it. They break it up into as though it were 3 different commandments or 4 different commandments, and as though it's optional, not the whole thing, but everybody has to pick one. You got to do one. You got to love God. But here are 3 different options of how to love God, and all you have to do in order to be faithful to obey this commandment is select one of them and really devote yourself to that. That is a horrible exegesis of the greatest commandment. Each of us is called to love God with everything. If I was to exegete that commandment as simple as possible, I'd say the commandment is to love God with all that we have. And Christian, you may have never thought of yourself or identified as an intellectual. You may have never felt like you were particularly intelligent or gifted when it comes to study, but God gave you a mind. You're not a thoughtless, brainless person. God did not just give you a heart. He didn't just give you emotions and zeal. He didn't just give you strength and a body to walk out the faith in action. He didn't just give you an eternal soul, but he also gave you a mind. And to the best of your ability, with what God gave you, use it. Just like the parable of Jesus with the 3 servants, and they each are given different degrees, different measurements of talents. One has 5, and one has 2, and one has 1. You may feel like I just have 1 talent in the mind category. Well, put it to work. Don't bury it in the sand out of insecurity or fear. Put your mind to work, and I bet you that you will be surprised by how much you really can grasp in deep ways the truths of God if you apply yourself. I've talked to so many Christians who they were never, before being converted, they weren't bookworms, they weren't nerds, they weren't, that's just not who they were. They were always into sports or things that may be more physical and less mental, or maybe more artistic than they were, studious. But God so changed their heart. They became so zealous and so interested, so desirous of the things of God that they were like, well, yeah, I've never really been much of a studious person, but I want to know God. And all of a sudden, this person who was, if you look at their childhood, they were a lot more interested in PE than they were math or arithmetic or English. And now all of a sudden, I've talked to people who, before being converted, they only read 2 or 3 books all the way through in their entire life, and now they're a ferocious reader.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out they actually were a lot more intelligent than they gave themselves credit for. They just didn't have something that interested them. But if you're a Christian, guess what? You have something that you should find very, very interesting, namely someone, the triune God. And he wrote a book for us, and we are called to love him. Christians do not have the prerogative to opt out of loving God with their mind, I guess is the short way to say. Any final thoughts, Doreen?
Yeah, I love everything you said. I completely agree with you, Pastor Joel. Thank you so much. My final thought is that when people take the Enneagram, a lot of times it's because they want to know about their relationships. That's their stated goal. They want to know about their marriage. But the most important relationship is with our triune God. And if we're in a relationship with God, you want to know everything about your beloved. So the way to know about our triune God is to read his word. And that is to study the Bible every day. I know everyone's busy and distracted. I'm busy. I get distracted. For me, it's word before world. It's just before I allow myself to do anything else, I'm in the seat with the Bible. I go through a book at a time. I just started Proverbs again. And every time you read it, the Holy Spirit will illuminate something new for you that you learn about our triune God and really about yourself too.
Thanks for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, we hope that you'll take a moment and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can watch more content like this. Also, take a moment and give this video a like so that it can reach more people. And take a moment and click on the bell so that you'll be notified whenever we come out with new content. Thanks so much. God bless.